Hi, thank you. Thank you, Margaret. The Philippines. Uh, I don't know where to start. So we are right now still facing a rather severe human rights crisis in my country, courtesy of my president, President Duterte, who about 2 days ago promised to make the drug war, so-called, even harsher. Um, the estimates now as to how many actually have died in this campaign varies. There are no credible sources of statistics. The estimate ranges from 20,000 to as many as 60,000 since June 2016. But the police were willing to officially accept that at least 5,000 have been killed in so-called legitimate operations against suspected drug users. And I find myself, I keep repeating myself in talking to people that, even with that number alone, even if we take that and discard all the others, that's still a pretty high number of people who died without due process and very, very questionable circumstances. The government claims that all of them had fought back, so that's why they were killed during this operation. But there's no way all of those fought back, because our own investigation and investigations by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and others point to a systematic police operations where the police would often plant evidence such as weapons and drugs on the bodies of victims. So there's always been that happening since day one. What has changed since 2016 is that the killings have panned out to the provinces in bigger numbers. It used to be just Manila, which remains the kind of the hotspot in terms of these killings. But other cities, like major cities, major urban areas, there have been an increase of killings there in the past year. And these urban areas have the same profile of victims. These are mainly very poor Filipinos living in the slums, because those are the main victims of this drug war. Really, what we call in the Philippines squatter people, slum-dwelling people, and so they're the most marginalized, the most voiceless, the most underrepresented sector of the Philippines. Poverty being so widespread in my country, these millions of these people live in these really squalid conditions, living off the sewers, literally, in many of them, and are not and do not have representation in government. Many of them come from the provinces, and so they try their luck in the urban areas like Manila, and because there's not a lot there's not a lot of jobs in Manila, there's not a lot to do in Manila, so they end up in the slum areas where they are very easily victimized by the police and by local officials. So that's the thing that's happening, the expansion of the drug war to other areas of the country. And also, recently, we've seen a more intensified campaign by the Duterte government to really undermine critics of the drug war. Of course, this has been happening since day one of the campaign, and in fact, over this weekend, it would be the second year of detention of a sitting senator, Laila de Lima, who was the first to be persecuted by this government. Senator Laila de Lima was arrested on February 24th on drug-related charges. The claim was that she was protecting drug lords while she was secretary of the Justice Secretary, which to our mind is a bogus charge, because mainly the charge is based on the testimony of convicted drug felons. And the government has not presented any credible evidence to back up its claim that she was in concert with them. And but she's been in prison for the past 2 years, and she has been prevented from doing her job as a senator, and her rights as an individual have been severely violated. Just to give you one example, is that every time she is taken out of her detention so that she can go to court for pretrial procedures, she has probably a dozen or two police escorts around her who would literally try to muzzle her from talking to reporters as she walked from the courthouse to her car, preventing her from talking to anybody, and they would cough in unison so that her voice would be drowned out. That's just crazy, if you ask me. And so she's been living like that. She doesn't have gadgets in her cell, so she writes her statements via longhand and asks her staff to bring them out. She's she's a prisoner of conscience in many ways, and she's suffering that fate because of her opposition to Duterte from the very beginning. I mean, even before Duterte became president, she was already marked for destruction. And even Duterte himself said that he will destroy her in public. And that's exactly what he did. And she was the first to suffer from that retribution, because she dared in 2009 to investigate the so-called Davao death squads in his city in Mindanao. And he never forgave her for that. So that's, and then of course, the journalists. We know the case of Maria Ressa of Rappler, formerly of CNN. She was arrested a week ago, posted bail, but basically this harassment of her and Rappler is meant to send a message to journalists to stop, to don't mess with the government. That they've been trying to bend the law according to their wishes. For instance, charging her with cybercrime, even if that law was passed, even if that article that she supposedly edited was published in 2012, no, 2002, I think. No, 2012, but that the law on cybercrime was passed only a few months afterwards. So retroactively, they're using that law, and also they're using it to argue that cyber libel is a continuing offense. So, and couple that with a retroactive way that they're using it, potentially anything that you publish in 1601 could still be used against you in 2019, because it is a continuing offense. And even if, as in the case of Rappler, they just changed a punctuation that updated the website to 20-something, and they used that against Rappler. So, and it's not just, of course, it's not just a journalist. You know, journalists in the Philippines face this immense threat against them because of in social media, the trolls, the propagandists. But also you have the fact that a lot of journalists in the Philippines are still being targeted for killings, for extrajudicial and summary execution. So you have multiple threats coming from all sides. So now the fear among Filipino journalists is the chilling effect that this has. And true enough, a few days after Maria Ressa was arrested, Philippine Star, one of the largest newspapers, took down the story that the Rappler story cited in its original report, because they were advised by the lawyers of this person, of the aggrieved businessman, that they would take legal action against the Philippine Star. So the chilling effect is already there. Now, what the fear now is that the institutions in the Philippines are pretty much, under attack and being undermined. And these are institutions and individuals that can check, obviously, that can check the abuse of power by this president. And not a lot of them are standing up to defend this institution. I mean, in Maria Ressa's case, the international community, international journalists were really vocal in their support for her. But really, press freedom is just one issue in the Philippines. There are a lot of other issues that are not being given attention. We're talking about the continuing killings, not just of drug suspects, but political activists. We're talking about the continued detention of political activists as well as the harassment of NGOs and civil society groups. Just in November, the Securities and Exchange Commission handed down a memorandum circular requiring all NGOs and civil society groups in the Philippines to register every staff member, where their money is coming from, what these money are being used for, and if in fact this money are used for the intended purposes, and all of that. It's a very, very invasive procedure that NGOs in the Philippines are now facing. And people are saying, oh, he borrowed that from China. I don't know where he got that, but this is unprecedented. So we're looking at the situation in the Philippines where institutions are pretty much put on the defensive and are unable to function properly.
Great, perfect timing, thank you.